Welcome to Life Stories, where we share inspiring tales that touch the heart and celebrate the power of kindness. Today's story begins on a snowy Christmas morning in the quiet town of Brookfield, Colorado, where a humble mechanic named Ryan Carter made a decision that would change not only his life but also the lives of those around him. Through love, empathy, and profound life lessons, we'll explore how one simple act of generosity can spark extraordinary opportunities. Subscribe to Life Stories to start today's heartfelt journey. Let's dive into the story of Ryan Carter and the Christmas that transformed his life forever. Ryan Carter stood alone in his modest auto repair shop on Christmas morning, wiping his hands on a grease-stained rag. At 35, Ryan had spent more years under car hoods than he cared to count. His shop, nestled on the outskirts of Brookfield, Colorado, was more than a workplace, it was a second home. Albeit a quiet and solitary one, especially on a day like this, while others gathered around twinkling trees and laden tables with their families. Ryan chose to keep his shop open for anyone in need. Not everyone gets to take a day off, he often told himself, even though the emptiness of his shop during the holidays sometimes weighed heavily on him. Outside, snowflakes danced in the crisp winter air, blanketing the town in a soft white hush. Inside, Ryan adjusted the radio, searching for something festive to keep him company. The small artificial Christmas tree on the counter blinked cheerfully, its warm lights casting a soft glow in the otherwise utilitarian space. It wasn't much, but to Ryan, it was enough. As he leaned back in his chair, savoring the calm, the sound of a sputtering engine cut through the stillness. He glanced out of the frosted window to see a car stalling to a stop just outside his shop. Moments later, a woman stepped out, bundled in a wool coat, her breath forming visible puffs in the icy air. Ryan's curiosity was piqued. It wasn't every day that someone showed up on Christmas morning. The door creaked open, and the woman, her cheeks flushed from the cold, stepped inside. Her expression was a mix of embarrassment and relief. "I'm so sorry to bother you on Christmas," she began, her voice tinged with hesitation. "But my car gave out a mile down the road, and I didn't know where else to go." Ryan rose, offering her a kind smile that he hoped would put her at ease. "You're not bothering me at all. Let's take a look," he said, grabbing his coat and tools. The woman introduced herself as Lauren Bennett, explaining that she was traveling to Aspen to spend the holiday with her parents. Her 7-year-old son, Dylan, was waiting in the car, clutching a small, carefully wrapped gift. "He's been so excited to see his grandparents," she said, her voice softening with maternal affection. Outside, Ryan inspected the sleek sedan under the falling snow. It appeared well maintained, but the faint smell of burnt oil told him the issue ran deeper. "You're lucky you caught it in time," Ryan said after a few minutes. "Looks like a belt snapped and took out a few other things. It's fixable, but it'll take some time." Lauren's face fell. "Oh no. Is there any chance you could?" "I'll get it done today," Ryan interrupted gently, reading the worry etched on her face. "You've got somewhere to be, and I'll make sure you get there." Lauren's relief was palpable. "Thank you so much. I can't tell you how much this means to us." Ryan waved away her gratitude with a modest shrug. "Go ahead and wait inside. There's coffee and hot chocolate by the counter. I'll let you know when it's ready." As Lauren and Dylan settled into the warmth of the shop, Ryan got to work. The cold bit at his fingers despite his gloves. But he worked tirelessly, his mind focused on the task at hand. Occasionally, he glanced toward the window, where Dylan peeked out, his wide-eyed curiosity bringing a faint smile to Ryan's lips. Hours passed, and as the afternoon light began to wane, Ryan finally finished. He stepped back, wiping his hands on his rag, satisfaction spreading through him. The car purred smoothly, ready to take Lauren and Dylan the rest of the way to Aspen. "It's all set," Ryan announced as he walked back inside. Lauren sprang to her feet, her gratitude evident in her brightened expression. How much do I owe you? She asked, reaching for her wallet. Ryan hesitated, considering the parts he'd used, the hours he'd spent, and the holiday he'd given up. Then he looked at Dylan, who clutched his small gift with an eagerness that tugged at Ryan's heartstrings. He thought of the boy's excitement to see his grandparents and of Lauren's quiet determination to make the holiday special for her son. Nothing. Ryan said finally. It's Christmas. Just get to where you need to be. Lauren's jaw dropped. I can't let you do that. Please. I insist. Ryan shook his head firmly. Consider it my gift to you. Besides, you've got people waiting for you. I'm sure they'll be happier to see you than I would be with a check. Tears welled in Lauren's eyes as she stepped forward and hugged him briefly. You have no idea how much this means to me. Thank you. As Ryan watched their car pull away, a strange warmth spread through his chest. For the first time in years, he felt something he couldn't quite name, something akin to the true spirit of Christmas. He returned to his quiet shop, the sound of their car fading into the snowy evening, unaware that his simple act of kindness was about to set in motion something extraordinary. The morning after Christmas dawned cold and clear in Brookfield. Ryan Carter awoke feeling more at ease than he had in a long time. The events of the previous day replayed in his mind like a comforting melody: Lauren's gratitude, Dylan's wide-eyed excitement, the quiet satisfaction of knowing he had made a difference. For years, Ryan had poured his energy into fixing cars, but rarely had he felt such a genuine connection to the people behind the vehicles. The shop was predictably slow that day, as it often was after the holidays. Ryan busied himself with paperwork, the mundane details of running a small business. His thoughts kept drifting back to Dylan's joyful face as he hugged his gift. The memory filled him with a warmth that made the quiet day less lonely. Just as he settled into the rhythm of routine, the phone rang. Ryan picked it up absent-mindedly, expecting an inquiry about oil changes or an overdue tune-up. Carter Auto Repair, he said, his tone neutral. Hello, Mr. Carter. This is Richard Bennett, the voice on the other end replied. Ryan sat up straighter, immediately recognizing the surname. I believe you helped my daughter Lauren yesterday with her car. Ryan nodded, though Richard couldn't see him. Yes, sir. She and her son were on their way to see you. I hope they made it safely. They did, Richard said warmly, and she hasn't stopped talking about what you did for them. I wanted to personally thank you. It's rare to meet someone as generous as you these days. Ryan felt a twinge of embarrassment. He wasn't used to being praised for what he saw as simply doing the right thing. I was just happy to help, he replied modestly. It wasn't just about fixing the car. Richard continued. You gave my grandson a Christmas he'll never forget. And you made Lauren feel less alone. That kind of kindness isn't something I take lightly. Ryan hesitated, unsure how to respond. The gratitude in Richard's voice was genuine, and it left him feeling both humbled and slightly overwhelmed. I'm glad I could help, he said finally. Well, Richard said, his tone shifting slightly, I'd like to repay you. Is there any chance you'd let me come by the shop this week? Ryan hesitated again. He wasn't used to people going out of their way for him. There's really no need for that. I was just doing my job. Humor me, Richard said, his voice good-natured but insistent. I'll see you soon. Before Ryan could protest further, Richard ended the call. The next 3 days passed in a blur of repairs and quiet contemplation. Though Ryan tried to focus on his work, his thoughts often wandered back to the phone call. Who was Richard Bennett? And why did he seem so determined to thank him? On the third day, as Ryan tightened a lug nut on a customer's car, a sleek black SUV pulled into the lot. A tall man with silver hair and a crisp wool coat stepped out. His confident demeanor immediately caught Ryan's attention. Mr. Carter, the man called, extending a hand as Ryan approached. That's me, Ryan said, shaking the man's hand. You must be Richard. I am, Richard replied, his grip firm and warm. Thanks for taking a moment to chat. Ryan gestured toward the shop. Come on in. They settled into the small office. The smell of motor oil mingling with the faint aroma of coffee. Richard glanced around, taking in the space with an appraising eye. You've got a good setup here, he remarked. Been in business long? About 10 years. Ryan replied. Started with just me and a couple of tools. It's grown slowly since then. Richard nodded thoughtfully. Lauren told me you didn't charge her for the repairs. I want you to know how much that meant to her, and to me. My daughter's been through a lot. She's fiercely independent. But your kindness lifted her spirits. Ryan shrugged. Uncomfortable with the praise. Like I said, it was Christmas. I just wanted to do something good. Well, Richard said, reaching into his coat pocket. I believe good deeds deserve recognition. He pulled out an envelope and handed it to Ryan. Ryan opened it cautiously, his eyes widening as he saw the stack of bills inside. This is too much, he stammered. I can't accept this. It's $5,000, Richard said, raising a hand to stop Ryan's protest. Consider it a token of my appreciation. And before you say no, let me explain. I own a chain of auto repair shops across the state. I know how hard it is to run a place like this. And I know how rare it is to find someone who puts people above profit. Ryan was speechless. $5,000 was more than he made in a good month. It could cover bills, buy new equipment, even give him a cushion for slower seasons. There's one more thing. Richard continued. If you're ever looking for a change or just want to expand your horizons, there's a place for you in my company. I could use someone like you. Someone with integrity and skill. Ryan stared at the man, overwhelmed. He had never sought recognition or rewards for what he did. Fixing Lauren's car had been the right thing to do. Plain and simple. But now he was being offered a chance to change his life in ways he hadn't imagined. I don't know what to say, he finally managed. Say you'll think about it. Richard said with a smile. And in the meantime, use that money for whatever you need. You've earned it. As Richard left, Ryan sat in his office, the envelope still in his hands. He looked around the shop that had been his world for so long and felt the stirrings of something new. Hope. What had started as an ordinary Christmas morning was turning into the beginning of a journey he hadn't seen coming. The days following Richard Bennett's visit were a whirlwind of emotion and reflection for Ryan Carter. He couldn't stop thinking about the envelope of cash now tucked safely in his desk drawer. It wasn't just the money that left him shaken, it was Richard's words. The idea of stepping beyond his small shop, of being part of something larger. Both excited and terrified him. Brookfield had been his entire world for over a decade. And the thought of leaving it behind felt like abandoning an old friend. That Friday evening, Ryan closed up early, unable to focus on his usual routine. He sat at his desk, staring at the envelope as if it held the answers he sought. The money could solve so many of his problems. It could buy better tools, repair the shop's aging equipment, and provide a much-needed cushion during the slow winter months. Yet, it felt like more than a gift, it felt like a nudge toward a future he wasn't sure he was ready for. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the shop door opening. Looking up, Ryan was surprised to see Lauren Bennett standing there, her warm smile immediately brightening the dim space. Lauren, he said. Standing. What brings you back? I hope I'm not intruding, she said, stepping inside and shaking the snow from her coat. I just wanted to thank you again. Properly this time. And I brought a little something. In her hands was a basket wrapped in cellophane, filled with homemade cookies, a bottle of sparkling cider, and a small handwritten card. Ryan hesitated before taking it, his smile widening despite himself. You didn't have to do this, he said softly. I know. Lauren replied, her voice light but sincere. But I wanted to. Dylan insisted we bake something for you. And I couldn't say no to him. Ryan chuckled, setting the basket on the counter. Tell him I said thank you. It means a lot. Lauren's gaze wandered around the shop, her expression thoughtful. My dad told me he talked to you, she said after a pause. Ryan nodded. Leaning against the counter. He did. He's a very generous man. He is. Lauren agreed. But so are you. And I think you should consider what he offered. Ryan frowned slightly. It's a big decision. I've been here so long. It's hard to imagine doing anything else. Lauren stepped closer. Her voice gentle. Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the best opportunities. You gave us the kind of help most people wouldn't even think of offering. Maybe it's time you let someone help you for a change. Her words lingered long after she left that evening. Ryan sat in his small apartment. The basket of cookies on the table beside him. He opened the card Lauren had written and read the simple message inside. Thank you for giving us a Christmas miracle. You have a rare gift. Don't be afraid to share it with the world. The weight of her words settled over him. For so long, Ryan had confined himself to the walls of his shop, content with the small world he'd built. But now, the idea of stepping beyond those walls stirred something in him, an unfamiliar but undeniable sense of possibility. The next morning, with the card still in his pocket, Ryan made a decision. He picked up the phone and dialed Richard Bennett's number. Mr. Bennett. It's Ryan Carter, he said when Richard answered. I've been thinking about what you said. And I'd like to talk more about that opportunity you mentioned. Richard's voice was warm with approval. I was hoping you'd call. How about lunch tomorrow? My treat. They met at a cozy diner in town. The kind of place where the smell of fresh coffee mingled with the chatter of locals. Over plates of hearty comfort food, Richard laid out his vision. He wanted Ryan to manage one of his repair shops, a newer location in Denver. In need of someone trustworthy and skilled to build its reputation. It was a step up. Not just in responsibility but also in pay and resources. You'd have more support than you do now. Richard explained. But you'd still be able to do what you love, help people. Ryan listened intently. His doubts slowly giving way to excitement. The thought of leaving his own shop was bittersweet. But the chance to grow, to challenge himself in new ways, was too compelling to ignore. I'll do it, he said at last. His voice a mixture of nervousness and determination. Richard beamed. I think you've made the right choice. Welcome to the team. The transition wasn't easy. Closing the shop felt like saying goodbye to a part of himself. But Ryan reminded himself that it wasn't an ending, it was a new beginning. Over the next month, he prepared for his role at the new location, working closely with Richard to understand the larger operation. When the day finally came to open the doors of the new shop in Denver, Ryan felt a rush of pride and anticipation. The space was modern and well-equipped. A far cry from the humble garage he had called home for so long. Yet, the core of his work remained the same, helping people get back on the road. One car at a time. On that first day, as he fixed a customer's flat tire, a small voice called out behind him. Mr. Carter. He turned to see Dylan and Lauren walking into the shop. Their faces alight with happiness. Dylan held a small toy car, which he handed to Ryan with a shy grin. It's for good luck, Dylan said. Ryan knelt down, accepting the toy with a smile. Thanks, buddy. I'll keep it right here on my desk. As he stood, Lauren met his gaze. Her eyes filled with gratitude. I'm glad you took the chance, she said softly. So am I, Ryan replied, his voice steady. That night, as he locked up the shop and looked out at the snow-covered parking lot, Ryan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. What had started as a simple act of kindness had grown into something far greater, and he couldn't wait to see where the road would take him next. As the holiday season approached once again, Ryan Carter found himself reflecting on the journey that had unfolded over the past year. What began as a simple act of kindness on a snowy Christmas morning had grown into a life-changing experience. Now managing a thriving repair shop in Denver, he felt more fulfilled than ever. Not just in his work, but in the connections he had made along the way. Ryan glanced at the small toy car Dylan had given him, proudly displayed on his desk. It reminded him of the power of kindness and the unexpected opportunities it could bring. Snow fell softly outside as Ryan smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning of a brighter future. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey. Don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories for more inspiring tales that remind us of the beauty in everyday moments.